My wife's betrayal. A painful journey of truth. For 17 years, my wife, 39 and have been married, raising our three daughters aged 11, 13, and 15. Our story began in high school, where we were sweethearts who promised each other the world. Over the years, we built a life full of memories celebrating anniversaries, birthdays, milestones, and quiet evenings together. We were partners in every sense, or so I thought. But 3 days ago, everything came crashing down when my wife confessed to cheating on me. 4 years of lies, betrayal, and deceit unraveled with a single admission. Her reason? She was bored. The beginning of the nightmare began 3 days ago. My wife returned home from work visibly upset, her face pale and her hands trembling. She didn't say much, just rushed into our bedroom, packed an overnight bag, and left. The sound of the front door slamming echoed through the house, leaving an eerie silence behind. Our eldest daughter, who witnessed her mother's hurried departure, described her as panicked and tearful. I tried to stay calm, assuming it was a work emergency or a family issue she hadn't yet explained. But as the hours turned into days and all my calls and texts went unanswered, panic set in. I reached out to her parents, hoping for answers. They confirmed she was safe, but refused to give me any details. They told me to be understanding without explaining why. I felt like I was spiraling into a dark abyss, left to grapple with uncertainty and fear. Her coworkers, whom I contacted in desperation, revealed that she had left work early that day, but no one knew why. My imagination ran wild, conjuring scenarios of accidents, illness, or something far worse. Meanwhile, I was left to care for our daughters, who were understandably shaken by their mother's sudden absence. They assumed we'd had a fight and were on the brink of divorce, a notion far from the truth since we hardly ever argued. I tried to reassure them while battling my own inner turmoil. How could she abandon us like this? D-Day. The truth unveiled after 2 days of silence. I did the only thing I could think of. I called the police for a wellness check. It was a step I never imagined I'd have to take. That's when the truth emerged, not from my wife, but through a chain of events that I still can't fully comprehend. Her lover, the man she'd been secretly seeing for over 4 years, had died of a heart attack. The affair came to light in the aftermath of his sudden death. As if the betrayal wasn't devastating enough, I learned that her family had known about the affair all along. They had been complicit in her deception, shielding her secret from me while encouraging me to be understanding. I felt like my entire world had collapsed. The woman I had loved for 23 years, the mother of my children, had betrayed me in the most unimaginable way. And even after her lover's death, she still hadn't contacted me or our daughters directly. I was left to piece together the wreckage of our lives on my own. Struggling to cope, the days following the revelation have been a blur of emotions. Grief, anger, confusion, they all hit me in waves, leaving me exhausted and hollow. Nights are the hardest. I lie awake in bed, replaying every memory, every shared moment, questioning whether it all meant nothing to her. I've tried to maintain some semblance of normalcy for my daughters, who are my only source of strength right now. But they're far too young to shoulder the burden of my pain. I can see the confusion and sadness in their eyes as they struggle to understand why their mother left and what it means for our family. In an attempt to regain some control, I sought advice from attorneys and started the process of therapy, though the waiting lists are long. I've tried to stay active, avoid destructive habits, and focus on my daughters, but it's an uphill battle. Every time I see their faces, I'm reminded of the family we used to be and the void her betrayal has left behind. I can't stop wondering how she could destroy everything we built together. Was she ever truly happy? Was I blind to the cracks in our marriage? These questions haunt me day and night. The future, forgiveness or divorce? Her parents visited me recently, pleading her case. They want her to come home, insisting she's remorseful and needs her family now more than ever. But I'm not ready. I told them that if she wants to return, it can only happen under specific conditions. She must sit down with me and tell the whole truth, face to face, without lies or omissions. She must also apologize to our daughters and answer their questions honestly. Legally, I can't stop her from returning to the house we share, but emotionally, I need time to prepare. I need to decide what's best for our children and me. My wife has been texting the girls, apologizing repeatedly, and trying to rebuild a connection. I can see the guilt weighing heavily on her, but her words feel hollow to me. Actions speak louder than words, and I need more than apologies to even consider moving forward. Yesterday, yesterday, my wife returned home. It was an awkward and emotionally charged moment. There was no embrace, no warm welcome, just an unbearable tension that filled the room. She tried to hug me, but I turned away. The woman who had once been my best friend now feels like a stranger. She sat down with the girls, tears streaming down her face, and apologized. She told them she made a terrible mistake and that she still loves them. They listened quietly, their expressions a mix of confusion and hurt. Later, she tried to talk to me. She begged for forgiveness, claiming she made a terrible mistake and didn't know how to stop once the affair began. She said she was bored, that the affair gave her a sense of excitement she felt was missing from our marriage. Her words cut deep, leaving me speechless. What now? I don't know what the future holds. Part of me wants closure and answers. Part of me wants to protect my daughters from further pain. I've considered divorce, but I'm also torn about how that would impact my children. They've already been through so much. For now, my focus is on my daughters. I want to create a stable, loving environment for them, free from the chaos and heartbreak of the past few days. They deserve that much. As for my wife, I don't know if I'll ever be able to forgive her. Trust, once broken, is nearly impossible to rebuild. Every time I look at her, I see the betrayal, the lies, the years she spent living a double life. To anyone reading this, thank you for your advice, support, and prayers. Your kindness has been a light in this dark time. If there's one thing I've learned from this experience, it's the importance of resilience. Life doesn't always go as planned, but we owe it to ourselves and our loved ones to keep moving forward, one step at a time. This journey is far from over, but I'm determined to come out the other side stronger for myself and my daughters. And finally, I reached into the bottom drawer of my desk, pulling out a folder thick with evidence. Text messages, photos, receipts, all meticulously compiled over months of suspicion and quiet investigation. With a calculated calmness, I slammed the folder onto the dining table between us. The sound echoed through the room, breaking the silence like a thunderclap. This, I said, my voice low but firm, is for your company's AR department if you even think about contesting the divorce. Let's see how they handle two managers using company resources for an affair. Her face went pale as her eyes darted toward the folder. Her hands trembled as she hesitated to reach for it, as if touching it would confirm the undeniable. Finally, she sank into a chair, her shoulders collapsing under the weight of her actions. "Jack," she choked out, her voice cracking. Tears streamed down her face, but they didn't move me. "I made a mistake. Please, I love you." I laughed, but it wasn't the kind of laugh that signaled humor or joy. It was hollow, bitter, and filled with years of suppressed disappointment. "Love?" I echoed, leaning closer to her. "You call this love?" "No, Sarah. You don't love me. You love the life I gave you, the stability, the comfort, the facade of a perfect marriage. But the moment you thought you could get away with it, you threw it all away. For what? A cheap thrill? A few stolen moments with someone as morally bankrupt as you?" Her sobs grew louder, filling the room like an unwanted soundtrack to a scene I never imagined I'd live through. But I felt nothing. No anger, no sadness, just an overwhelming sense of relief. A weight I hadn't even realized I was carrying had been lifted, leaving behind only clarity. I stood, grabbing my keys from the counter. "I'll be staying at a hotel for the next few days. Movers will come for your things by the end of the week. You need to leave this house." Her head snapped up, panic flashing in her red, tear-streaked eyes. "Jack, no. Please. We can fix this. Counseling, therapy, anything. Just don't give up on us." I paused, turning to face her one last time. "Some things can't be fixed, Sarah. Some things shouldn't be." The silence that followed was deafening, save for her muffled sobs. As I reached the door, I added, almost as an afterthought, "Oh, and I canceled the credit card for that purse you bought on your business trip. Good luck explaining that." And with that, I stepped outside, closing the door on our life together. Her cries faded behind me as I walked to my car, the crisp night air biting at my skin. For the first time in years, I felt like I could truly breathe. The drive to the hotel was surreal. A strange mixture of emotions churned inside me: rage, betrayal, sadness. But beneath it all, there was something else. Something unexpected. Liberation. The realization that I no longer had to bear the burden of a marriage built on lies was both terrifying and exhilarating. I checked into a modest hotel, throwing my overnight bag onto the bed before collapsing onto the mattress. Staring at the ceiling, I replayed the confrontation in my head. The shock in her eyes, the desperate pleas, the tears, none of it mattered anymore. I had done everything I could to save our marriage over the years. I had compromised, sacrificed, and looked the other way far too many times. But now I was done. Sleep came fitfully, but when morning arrived, so did a text from an unexpected number. Mark's wife. The woman I had reached out to when I pieced together the full extent of the affair. "Thank you for telling me," the message read. "I'm leaving him too. We deserve better." I stared at the screen for a long moment, her words sinking in. We deserve better. She was right. We did. The days that followed were a whirlwind of paperwork and logistics. Divorce filings, meetings with lawyers, and awkward conversations with mutual friends who suddenly didn't know whose side to take. Some tried to guilt me into reconsidering, claiming I was being too harsh, that everyone makes mistakes. "Mistakes?" I retorted to one particularly persistent friend. "A mistake is forgetting an anniversary or saying something hurtful in the heat of the moment." This was deliberate, calculated. She lied to my face for months. That's not a mistake, it's a betrayal. Others, however, rallied behind me. My closest friend, Dan, offered his spare room if I needed it. "You don't have to do this alone," he said, his voice steady with sincerity. "Whatever you need, I'm here." But as much as I appreciated the support, I knew this was a journey I had to take on my own. For too long, I had let others dictate my happiness, my parents, my colleagues, my wife. Now it was time to take back control. A week later, I returned to the house to oversee the movers. Sarah wasn't there, thankfully. The sight of her would have only complicated things. As I walked through the empty rooms, memories flooded back. The good times, the laughter, the shared dreams. But those memories felt like someone else's life, like a story I had read in a book and left on a shelf to collect dust. In the corner of the living room, I found a photo album she had left behind. Flipping through it, I saw the progression of our relationship. The honeymoon phase, the first home we bought together, the vacations we took. By the end, the smiles in the photos looked forced, as if we were both pretending everything was fine. I closed the album and placed it in the donation pile. The past had no place in my future. A few months later, I found myself sitting at a coffee shop, staring out the window as the world moved around me. The divorce was finalized, the house sold, and I had relocated to a smaller, cozier apartment downtown. Life was simpler now, quieter. And while I still carried the scars of betrayal, I also felt a growing sense of peace. One evening, I received another text from Mark's wife. She had moved to a new city, started a new job, and was rebuilding her life. "It's not easy," she admitted, "but I'm finally starting to feel like myself again." Her words resonated deeply. Healing wasn't linear, and there were still days when the bitterness threatened to consume me. But as I looked around my new home, decorated with pieces I had chosen for myself, I realized I was doing the same. I was finding myself again. The final chapter of this story came unexpectedly. At a friend's barbecue, I struck up a conversation with a woman named Emily. She was smart, funny, and refreshingly honest. Over the course of the evening, we talked about everything from books to travel to our favorite childhood memories. For the first time in years, I felt a genuine connection, not forced, not performative, but real. As the night wore on and the crowd began to thin, Emily turned to me with a smile. "You seem like someone who's been through a lot," she said, her eyes searching mine. "But you also seem like someone who's ready to start again." Her words stayed with me long after the barbecue ended. She was right. My marriage had ended, but my life hadn't. And while the road ahead was still uncertain, I was no longer afraid of the journey. Because endings, I realized, are just beginnings in disguise. I have to admit, venting to her felt cathartic at the moment, but now I'm filled with regret. Should I text my wife? Or is it better to just ignore her? I feel like a complete wreck. Thank you for listening and offering your advice. It means more than I can express. We've started treatment, which is at least one step forward amidst all this chaos. But honestly, it's been incredibly hard. Thank you all for your concern. I know many of you have reached out, and I appreciate it. You were right, things haven't been going well. This past week has been unbearable, and I've regressed a lot emotionally. My wife has been apologizing nonstop for her affair. She's crying, clinging to me, and constantly knocking on my door to talk. She won't leave me alone. I've spoken to her when I've felt like it, but most of the time, I've ignored her. On Wednesday night, I finally snapped and told her to stop bothering me. Then last night, everything came to a head. After her affair became public, my soon-to-be ex-wife returned home about a month ago, and we've been in this uncomfortable cohabitation routine ever since. Last night, after the kids went to bed, she begged to speak to me in private. Unlike her usual approach, this time she seemed genuinely vulnerable. I reluctantly agreed. We ended up sitting in the car in the garage to avoid another confrontation in front of the kids. She started by apologizing profusely and then began confessing everything. She recited a 5-page handwritten account of her affair, detailing every lie she told me over the years. Fake weekend getaways, work trips, excuses about traffic, or family problems, each one carefully crafted to hide her betrayal. Hearing it all was excruciating. I cried, got angry, and tried to hold myself together, but the pain was unbearable. She admitted she fell in love with her affair partner, someone her sister had introduced her to 5 years ago. At first, they just talked, then texted, then exchanged pictures, and finally, it became physical right before the pandemic. She claimed to have tried ending the affair several times, only to go back to him. He promised her luxury, excitement, and an escape from the monotony of family life. She admitted she fantasized about leaving her responsibilities behind. Despite her confession, she kept insisting that she loved me and wanted to save our marriage. But her words felt rehearsed, hollow. I could tell when she was lying. I've known her for so long. At one point, I asked her, if Yorip were still here and you had to choose between him and me, who would it be? She hesitated before whispering, that's not fair. When she finally answered, you, of course, I told her I didn't believe her. That's when I made it clear I'm divorcing her. I told her we owed it to our kids to remain civil and co-parent responsibly. If she truly cared about me, I asked her to make the divorce as amicable as possible. Before leaving, I kissed her forehead, told her I had loved her, and walked away. That was it. The night was restless. I couldn't sleep, my thoughts spiraling with everything she had confessed. Imagine finding out that the person you loved most betrayed you, not because of any problems in your relationship, but simply because they were bored. It's devastating. I've always prided myself on being strong, but this has been unlike anything I've ever faced. I used to believe love was enough to conquer anything. I'd wake up each day thinking about how I could make my family happy. But now I question everything. How did I not see this coming? Was I too focused on work, on providing, to notice her drifting away? Or was this doomed from the start, and I was just blind to it? My therapist says not to blame myself, but it's hard not to. The memories come in waves. Her smile at our wedding, her laugh during family trips, the way she looked at me when I proposed. Were those moments real? Or were they just as hollow as her promises now? The kids make it even harder. They're so young, so innocent, and they don't understand what's happening. I've been doing my best to shield them from this storm, but I can't hide it forever. They ask why mommy and daddy don't laugh together anymore. Why I sleep on the couch. Why mommy's always crying. How do you explain betrayal to a child? How do you tell them their world is about to change forever because of choices they had no part in? I've decided to move forward with the divorce. It's not just about me, it's about creating a stable, healthy environment for the kids. They deserve better than this tension-filled house where every word feels like walking on eggshells. They deserve parents who can at least coexist peacefully, even if they can't be together. My lawyer has been supportive, outlining the steps and ensuring the kids' well-being remains the priority. We're discussing custody arrangements, and while it's heartbreaking to think about sharing time with my children, I know it's necessary. They need both of us, even if we're no longer a unit. As for her, she's oscillating between remorse and desperation. Some days, she begs for forgiveness, promising to change and pleading for another chance. Other days, she's defensive, lashing out when I remind her that our marriage is over. It's like she's grappling with the reality of her actions, but refusing to fully accept the consequences. I've set boundaries, but it's hard to enforce them when we're under the same roof. Every interaction feels charged, like a minefield waiting to explode. I'm counting down the days until I can move out, or she does. This limbo we're in isn't sustainable. Despite everything, I'm trying to hold on to hope. Not for our marriage that's gone, but for a future where I can heal. A future where the kids can grow up in a loving, supportive environment, even if it's a different kind of family than I imagined. A future where I can rebuild my life, piece by piece. I've started journaling, pouring my thoughts onto paper when they feel too heavy to carry. It's been surprisingly therapeutic, helping me process the whirlwind of emotions I'm experiencing. Anger, sadness, betrayal, guilt, they're all there, tangled together, fighting for space in my mind. Writing gives me a semblance of control, a way to untangle the mess, even if just for a moment. And then there's you, this community. The support, advice, and understanding I've found here have been a lifeline. Reading your comments, knowing I'm not alone, has been a source of comfort in this dark time. Some of you have shared your own stories of heartbreak and healing, reminding me that there's light at the end of this tunnel, even if it feels impossibly far away right now. To anyone going through something similar, I want you to know you're not alone. It's okay to feel broken. It's okay to grieve what was and what could have been. But don't let the pain define you. Take it one day at a time, one step at a time. And don't be afraid to lean on others when it feels like too much to bear. Last night, as I lay awake, a thought struck me. This isn't the end of my story. It's a chapter, a painful, gut-wrenching chapter, but not the final one. There's more to come. More love, more joy, more life. And while I don't know what that looks like yet, I'm determined to find out. Thank you for reading and for your continued support. It's been a couple of rough nights, but I'm trying to stay strong. If you haven't already, please subscribe and hit the notification bell to stay updated on more real-life stories like this. Together, we can navigate life's challenges and find strength in shared experiences.